What single human has done the most damage to the progression of humanity in the history of mankind? Guy de Chauliac. He was a surgeon in the 1300s who vehemently spoke out against another fellow surgeon. Theodoric Borgonani. Theodoric was a surgeon who wrote about his theories on proper wound care and believed that the best thing you can do to a wound is wrap it and keep it clean. Guy hated what Theodoric was writing because it directly went against the teachings of Galen, an ancient Greek surgeon who believed pus was the body's way of balancing your humors. Guy's teachings were widely accepted, and it's believed that his ignorance set the development of antisepsis in surgery back about 600 years. Edit. Guy de Chauliac was born in the 1300s, not 1200s, as he was alive during the Black Death. Ignaz Semmelweis was the guy who was thrown into a mental asylum for saying surgeons should wash their hands between seeing patients. There's an awesome podcast called Behind the Bastards that is basically all about deconstructing the worst people in history. Would recommend it to anyone interested in this thread. OP is compiling a hit list for their time-traveling journeys. Purportedly, the unnamed inventor of flexible glass, Vitrum Flexile, brought a drinking bowl made of the material before Tiberius Caesar. The bowl was put through a test to break it, but it merely dented, rather than shattering. The inventor repaired the bowl easily with a small hammer. According to Petronius, after the inventor swore that he was the only man alive who knew the manufacturing technique, Tiberius had the man executed. He feared that the glass would devalue gold and silver, since the material might be more valuable. https://en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/flexible_glass. Robert Maxwell, father of Ghislaine. The man was the leading cause of paywalled scientific articles today. Before him, science publishing was relatively open. He helped shape the industry into the cancer on academia it is today. Edit. Quite the thing to wake up to. Thanks everyone. For those interested, I found an article that details the events pretty well. The TL. Doctor version is that through use of PR marketing, exclusivity deals, and copyright law, Maxwell through Pergamon Press turned scientific publishing from a relatively non-profit-driven endeavor to a predatory industry that charged institutions out the nose for research they paid nothing for. Check out Alexandra and Sci-Hub. They've definitely helped many people who can't access scientific research. Video on Sci-Hub. https://www.youtube.com/watch v=preus c6 low. Article. https://john/27/profitable-business-scientific-publishing-bad-for-science. Emperor Gaozong of China. This is kind of an obscure story, so let me tell you the whole thing. It was the 12th century. When people talk about how China used to be the most technologically advanced part of the world, this is the period they're talking about. Some historians that they were on the brink of industrializing. Then Manchuria invaded and conquered northern China. The imperial court retreated to the south and declared Gaozong, the emperor's brother, as the new emperor. China's top general Yu Fei, who, according to some records, literally had patriotism tattooed on his back, though that might have been made up by someone who wanted to emphasize how unfair the rest of this story is. Rallied he army and defeated the Manchus, and was raring to chase them out. But he gets orders from Gaozong to back down, because he'd rather negotiate. These negotiations end up signing away the north half of China. A few years later, the Manchus invade again. Yu Fei beats them again and pushes all the way back to the old capital, Kaifeng. Then he gets the order to retreat. He responds with a letter saying that he's got the Manchus on the ropes. And he can reconquer northern China in like a month. No, says the emperor. Retreat immediately. Eventually, Yu Fei does retreat. But he delays long enough to evacuate the city first, making up some logistical issues as an excuse. At this point, you may be wondering why Gaozong was so reluctant to push an advantage. The answer is that his brother was still alive. The king of Manchuria liked to bring him out once in a while and make fun of him. If Yu Fei reconquered China, he might liberate the rightful emperor, and Gaozong would be out of a job. As such, Gaozong was actively trying to throw the war, and he interpreted Yu Fei's delay at the end of this war as meaning that he had reached the point of at least considering going rogue. So as soon as Yu Fei got back, he was arrested and promptly executed on treason on the ground of error. He might have done something, presumably because the optics on the actual charge, almost winning a war we wanted to lose. War. Too bad. People realize that this is bull quickly enough. And there are protests. But Gaozong manages to pin everything on one of his advisors and placated the mob by executing him. So how does this affect the long-term progression of humanity? Well, as I said, China might have been on the brink of industrializing at the time, but didn't have access to enough coal. There are coal deposits in China, but they're all in the north. Second, the Manchus never really got their internal issues sorted out, and 70 years later, were easily conquered by the Mongols, who then recruited a bunch of disaffected Chinese siege engineers. This essentially removed the one weakness of horse archer hordes: they're not good at taking fortresses, and allowed them to wreck half the world. Had China been united at the time, and had been ruled fairly recently by a guy who had, if you recall, been taken prisoner by invaders from the north, so you can bet the defenses would be fairly well maintained. They probably could not have done this. So had it not been for the malice of this one man, the Mongols would probably never have become the juggernaut they eventually did, and the Industrial Revolution might have happened about 500 years ahead of schedule. You have been cursed by a witch to say only one short phrase for the rest of your life. But you get to choose what it is. What is your phrase? Pop pop. I have been cursed by a witch to say only one short phrase for the rest of my life: help me. Fucking way she goes, bud. I bet you $5 you can't make me say anything other than this sentence. Nice day for fishing, ain't it? Ha ha. Dude. With the proper intonation, this can be used to say almost anything. What is your real-life experience with, it's hard to win an argument with a smart person, but it's damn near impossible to win an argument with a stupid person? I know someone who legitimately stood up in the middle of a meeting about her child abuse in the child protection offices and yelled at everyone the child deserved to be stabbed because she knew not to play Operation So Loud. At that moment, in reality, there wasn't anything the child protection officer, her boyfriend, brother and sister, or the grandparent or father could say to her. I don't think there are the words in existence appropriate for that situation. I could only say, couldn't help myself. What the actual fuck? Quote. My mom's entire argument tactic was to interrupt the other person as soon as they opened their mouth. It didn't matter if you were calm and reasonable and respect you. The moment sound came out of you, she would come in with greater volume. She usually didn't have much to say, so she would literally repeat herself just to interrupt you, even if you paused and let her speak. If she was out of stuff to say, she would wait quietly until you try to talk again, then interrupt you with something she already said. She wasn't even subtle about what she was doing. She was prideful about how great of a debater she was. She thought this childish and disrespectful crap actually made her strong and respectable. I don't think she ever realized that she didn't actually win any arguments, but simply wore the other person down until they gave up on a constructive adult conversation with her. In school for my now job. At the beginning there was a woman sitting next to me. I was like 22 or 23. She was easily 40. Fine. At the beginning we got along well. Then she started to desperately search for similarities. It got annoying. Then she always asked me about stuff the teacher said while the teachers still talked. Basically wanted a live translation from me but without changing the language. Of course, resulting in both of us not being able to listen anymore. No way to explain to her she should just listen herself and at least try to understand. I would have happily tried to help her afterwards when I had time to hear it myself. First clue, she was not so bright. I was incredibly over her. But stayed nice. Then we were supposed to work in pairs on a small but not easy task. Of course, she didn't understand a word. I explained one thing. Don't remember what. To her for the umpteenth time. Fine. Sometimes it's cursed. You just don't get one thing. But then she proceeded to tell me I was wrong. Fine as well. If she can tell me why. But no. It was a matter of, I have no clue what's up with that. I don't understand it in the slightest. But I just know you're wrong about it just because. Spoiler. I was not wrong. I reread it 10 times in our sources. Found different sources. Tried to break it down to basically elementary school levels. She stopped listening to me and just continued to argue I was wrong because I was wrong or something. Remember, that woman was more than 15 years older than me and around 40. I lost my patience. Stopped talking to her and just presented the task by myself. She did not admit anything after the fact. Shortly after she changed seats after a different incident. And not long after that she dropped out. Surprise, surprise. I deal with entitled wealthy investors every day. The only thing worse than arguing with a stupid person is a stupid wealthy person who thinks they are important. Met a flat earther. I think he was just going along with it to be contrarian. He said the whole thing was a conspiracy. Tried asking him where the edge was and he said it was a ring of ice. Tried explaining that for his conspiracy to work literally hundreds of thousands of people around the world in various space agencies would need to keep the secret, yet not one has come forward with the truth. Didn't work. Tried telling him we have literal photos and clips of the round Earth spinning. He said it was a lie. Not matter how much logic the rest of us threw at him, he just refused to accept it. We all came away thinking less of him for being so stubborn. A friend in school was convinced he could find a triangle whose angles wouldn't add up to 180 degrees after learning the rule in class. I just couldn't get him to understand that if he finds some shape that doesn't fit the definition of a triangle, then by definition he has not found a triangle.
Subscribe, my brothers.